One fear that reemerges every election cycle is voter fraud, and that includes the possibility of votes from illegal immigrants. Donald Trump spoke about that today at an immigration roundtable with Art Del Cueto, Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council.
I've spoken to several agents in my sector that are in charge of a lot of this processing of these individuals that we apprehended. A lot of them do have criminal records, and the problem that we're seeing, and that's being reflected to us as the voice, is that some of these individuals that we're apprehending with criminal records, they're checking the records, they're noticing that they have criminal records, but they're setting them aside because at this point they're saying immigration is so tied up with trying to get the people that are in the waiting list, hurry up and get them their immigration status corrected, make them citizens.
Why
so they can go ahead and vote before the election. And for us to...
Big statement, fellas.
I mean, to do that...
I'm sure you're not going to write it. To me, that's a message.
That's huge.
They're letting people pour into the country so they can go and vote.
We want to hurry up and fast-track them so they can go ahead and be able to vote for these elections.
And these are the professionals. These are the people that are on the board. You hear a thing like that, it's a disgrace.
John Fund, National Affairs Correspondent for National Review, joins me now from New York. John, you've had your eye on this issue for a long time. What are you seeing?
We have an honor system in all the 50 states. If you want to register to vote and vote, the only thing that prevents you from voting if you're a non-citizen is checking a box saying you're a citizen. We don't have any kind of verification on that. We have evidence all over the country the last few weeks, whether it's Virginia, Pennsylvania, Illinois, that non-citizens are on the registration rolls and they can easily vote. This story that came out today reminds me that 20 years ago this month, the Clinton campaign, the Bill Clinton campaign in 1996, had a program called Citizenship USA. They were rushing 1 million people through to premature citizenship. 200,000 didn't have proper background checks. Several thousand criminal aliens were made citizens back then. And an Inspector General's report from the Justice Department roundly condemned that program for its sloppiness and its lack of adherence to established procedures.
John, the argument is often made by people who don't think we need, voter ID laws and strict standards for people to meet to be able to vote, that for all the evidence that we have through, anecdotes about, people voting fraudulently or improperly, that it doesn't add up to enough to have made a difference in any election. What do you say to that?
Well, in 2008, Al Franken finally won the Minnesota Senate race by 315 votes. We now know there were 1,200 felons who voted illegally in that election. There were also a lot of non-citizens who voted in that election, enough to make up the difference. Al Franken became the 60th vote for the Democrats in the Senate that enabled them to break the filibuster in Obamacare. We have Obamacare today in part because Al Franken was elected or declared the elected senator and cast the deciding vote on Obamacare.
Yeah, and I guess people must have forgotten about Florida 2000, in which the tiniest number of votes made all the difference. And
could happen again this year.
Yeah, I also have to ask you about the notion that the notion that fraud won't matter. It seems to me is contradicted by the fact also that you have a lot of down-ballot races in which the volume of votes is much smaller than it is in a Senate race and certainly in a presidential race, where cheating could much more easily make a difference.
We see that over and over again. The races that really decide how people live on a day-to-day basis, the sheriff race, the mayor's race, the city council race, the school board race, often are decided by a handful of votes. You put your thumb on the scale of democracy and have a few fraudulent votes or votes that are counted improperly, it can change who sits in those positions.
John, I posted a tweet the other day in which I said that anybody who says that, or if somebody tries to tell you that there's not enough voter fraud in American elections to make a difference, should ask that person to volunteer to have his or her vote canceled by a fake vote. I didn't get a lot of volunteers, although I got a couple, but I think that's also an issue. Every vote's supposed to count, right? Isn't that one of the Democratic Party's mantras of not too long ago?
We have two civil rights. One is a right that we fought for in the 60s to make sure everyone can vote without intimidation, without poll taxes and other barriers. We need to keep that fight going. There's another civil right. Everyone in your audience has the right to have their ballot cast and not have it canceled out by someone who's a felon, someone who doesn't exist, someone who's dead, someone who is a non-citizen. That is also a civil right. We need to protect both civil rights.
John, thanks very much. Always good to see
you.
you.